number of years ago, I remember looking at a lot of pictures of different artists' workspaces. It's a fun thing to look up, whether it be DeviantArt's searches, Google image search, any really kind of search query that can give you a lot of results that are definitely the thing you were looking for. And there's a certain, I feel, aesthetic to looking at a lot of these spaces and seeing things like dried paint on surfaces that aren't canvas or paper. You know, you have a cardboard backing, or just a wooden table that has really gotten destroyed by paint. And at a certain point, I kind of stopped looking at those images. Recently, I've sort of come back to that in many ways, and looking at a lot of these images again, not so much for the same reason though. While I looked early on because I was so inspired by things that looked like screw-ups and things that looked like were almost intentional and intentionally put on different work surfaces or things like that. And for a long time I tried to essentially replicate that. I was trying to make a scene or a camera shot look as if it was presented to be that messy workspace of an artist, but I couldn't do it. I could never do it. And I think part of that was that I was going about it the wrong way. And so when I came back to looking at these images after a long time, it wasn't because I wanted to create that image, it's because I already had created that image. Just the process of not paying attention to that. There is a unique artistic beauty in the messiness of a studio. And I think that's something that a lot of beginners recognize, and a lot of more experienced painters and artists recognize. But there's that moment in the middle, that intermediate level. And what's interesting to me is I now, while I've become more of an experienced artist, I remember clearly that intermediate level. Not simply because it wasn't that long ago, but also because a lot of those times were when I started the channel here on YouTube. Which is fun for me to look back now at the old videos and see that progression when I was trying so hard to be experienced, but I wasn't there yet. And so now when I look at my studio space, it has grown both in the physical media and the supplies that I have, but it has grown in its own experience. My tables are messy. I have tubes of paint just lying around. I have paint on things that were never supposed to have paint on them, but they're not there because I wanted them there. They're because I didn't care. I was busy working on a painting and not working on trying to make my studio look like it's an artist's studio. It became that over time. So every now and then I'll just kind of look around my studio and I marvel at what I've created passively. Everyone looks at what artists create actively. They look at the paintings and the drawings and the sculptures that artists create, but there's so much depth. And you can learn a lot, I feel, by looking at an artist's workspace. I mentioned, I believe it was in a tweet a little while back, and it was that I hate to see an artist's desk that's clean. Because to me that means they don't do anything. Granted, I'm a bit of a messy painter. I can be a bit expressive when I work. But when I see a desk that is super organized, something that a painter's easel that's clean, that doesn't have any paint dried on it anywhere. I'm not inspired by that, and I think that it goes back to those early days of looking at the old studio pictures and looking for artists that really use their materials. So again, from the early days to now, I think I was looking to be experienced and wasn't. And when you don't worry about those things, when you don't worry about how things are supposed to look, things start looking better subconsciously. You're going to organize things in your own way, the way things work. The way I organize my watercolors, or the way I have all my acrylic colors lined up on the shelf. It's a little OCD, maybe, but in its own way, it has its own beauty to it. Everything from the cardboard on my work surface that has everything from graphite to ink to paint to watercolor to charcoal just smeared on it. None of it's intentional, because they were just little tests I was doing on the side. Let me just rub my brush on the corner a little bit. Let me see what I'm doing. Maybe go from my palette right to the cardboard and mix my paint on the side. None of those things. I was never trying to make the cardboard look like something, but in its own way, it has become its own work of art. It's never something that'll hang in a gallery. I mean, let's be honest. It's certainly not beautiful in the abstract sense, or rather, it is beautiful in the abstract sense. It's not beautiful in the refined sense. I wouldn't want one of my work mats to hang alongside one of my landscapes, but in many ways, I don't think the two of them are any less of the same thing. In many ways, they are equal. Aesthetically, they are very much the same. Everything from, a beautiful sunset to a bunch of mismatched colors strung together on a piece of cardboard made out of brush marks, out of spray paint, out of whatever I happen to have been doing. Those marks are something truly beautiful.